Last year, the government announced a £100 million programme to cut down on crime in prisons. With unemployment figures at a steady climb, prison rehab groups are calling for funding to support programmes aimed at preventing ex-offenders from re-offending. The connection between re-offending and unemployment has a long history in the UK. Earlier in the week, Inquest interviewed Guildford Union researcher Heather to learn about a case study from the past and reflect upon the implications today.
The records helped paint an image of him, stating he was 5'4" tall and a slender build. He had an oval face with a fair complexion, grey hair and light blue eyes. His right little finger was broken, he had an injured ankle, was blind in his left eye, and all his toes were deformed. He was convicted in February 1857 using the alias of John Barry, and he received 9 months. A year later, again using an alias, but he used an alias of Stephen Barrett. He then received a prison sentence of 4 years. And then again, in 1862, he was caught uttering, which is basically passing sort of counterfeit coins. The record I was looking at told me that he was using an alias. It was the criminal register indexes, and it was the records of the Central Criminal Court after trial calendar of prisoners 1862. I could never work out where his wife and children were at the time. I suspect one of his sons actually followed in his father's footsteps, because when I was researching Stephen, there seemed to be far too many criminal records for one person. And then it dawned on me that we were actually talking about 2 people, and the likelihood was that the other person was his son. It does say that he worked as a labourer, so whether he decided that labouring didn't give him enough money, or maybe it was easier money to pass on counterfeit coins, it would be interesting to know how he got in with the wrong crowd, if you like. And in 1871, when he was imprisoned again, he was 74. The 1871 crime, I do know a bit more about what he was doing because I found a newspaper article, and he was sentenced to 10 years. He was in Newgate prison. Then he was transferred to Millbank prison, and then he was transferred to Woking Invalid prison because he was so infirm. And then on his release, he literally had nowhere to go. The chairman of the Board of Guardians actually asked for the relieving officer to go to the prison and find out who this man was that they were being forced to admit into the workhouse. And when the relieving officer went, it says that he found that the man was 81 years of age, an invalid and almost bedridden. And it was after that the Board of Guardians understood that, given his helpless condition, that they couldn't do anything else. But the workhouses generally had more and more sort of elderly people who were disabled or had learning difficulties because there wasn't anywhere else for them to go. What was interesting for me is the number of different trades that people had on the 1881 census who were actually in the workhouse. I even found a solicitor. And so, you have to ask, well, why was he there? Unfortunately, it's just the casuals and vagrants ward that is still standing. But even so, it's quite an interesting experience just to go round that small part of what would have been a massive workhouse. I've always been sort of interested in social history, and nothing much actually changes through the centuries. These systems, they still prevail. They may be slightly different and they may be called different things, but they're still more of the same. My own mother was actually brought up in a poor law school. She didn't know her family at all, and that's what got me into family history research. We've got something like 256 inmates on the 1881 census, and there's now 11 of us. And so each person was allocated a page from the census. I was very impressed with the methodology. It means that you can structure your workload. You get sort of very close to the person. It made me want to cry at times it certainly made me feel very grateful for everything that I've got. You know, times were so hard. And I must admit, I was thrilled to bits when Stephen Barry was selected.